sunshine in the sky, a crispness in the air, crunchy leaves underfoot, jumpers and scarves, but not yet coats. There's romance in the air, of conversations, so join us around the fire with a sword stuck in it, ignoring the skellybobs just over there, and welcome to episode 4 of episode 64. Don't edit that, I'm fine.
Good
intro. Episode 64 of Twin Humanities. Please welcome our special guest, one of the illustrious writers and narrative designers on Witcher 3, Stephen Rhodes.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good. I've got a nice cup of Guatemala Antigua, which is soft and spicy and suits the season. So, and it's beautiful outside. There is a blue sky with kind of a chalk smattering of clouds. It's beautiful to not to be at work.
Yes.
Are you all right, Paddy? My friend, my colleague, my faithful teddy bear, Ginger.
Well, my curtains are shut, so I don't know if there's sun outside or not.
What?
Well, because the sun comes in, it glares up my computer, and I can't see anything. And I have a cup of tea with me.
Bog standard, supermarket.
Communal garden, simple.
Is it Red Box or is it a brand?
No pretension. Red box. No pretension.
Not even Yorkshire
Good
tea.
old-fashioned, normal, bog standard. Here's a cup of tea. No, not even Yorkshire tea at the minute. I'm saving. Christmas is coming up soon, so I'm going to buy a special Christmas tea soon.
I have better tea in my house than you have.
I know, but I appreciate all the teas.
No, you don't. You appreciate the cheapest teas.
I'm not proud.
Hey, it's Christmas. It's Christmas. Let's get some good tea in.
Well, we get the Christmas tea. It tastes like oranges and cinnamon. It's really nice.
Okay, I'm glad you're happy.
Look
Stephen,
at me doing.
Do you have a brew of choice?
I have Yorkshire tea, of course.
There we go. See, a little bit of class in that regard.
Well, I like it. It's just I don't buy it all the time because mortgages and stuff.
Although
winter's coming.
To go back on brand, they did do that Dark Souls tea thing, didn't they? For Dark Souls 3.
They printed it on the box, didn't they? Once.
Yeah. I'd loved it if they'd put that in the shops and maybe had like little pack-in sort of tiny Nitos and things.
And every packet said like "prepare to die" on it or something.
Yeah, and then somebody did because they I don't know, they got because you can't put toys in cereals anymore, can you? Because they're fearful of people choking on them and stuff. Although
Really?
I think if I had a child, like one of the proudest moments I could have would be them eating some Dark Souls cereal and spitting out an Artorias, just like volleying him across the room. It's like, right, sit down. Let me tell you about that battle and how he attacked us. Very, very much like the way that you spat it out.
Actually,
that
that's
sounds
one
like
of
a
the
good
boss
way
fights.
to test your kids, really. It's like if they survive eating cereal with toys in, then they're good to go.
You see, this is like the lone wolf and cub thing, where he has the king's child and he seals the child in a cave full of food over winter, and he believes that if the child is supposed to live, that the child will crawl towards the food, the child will eat, and when he comes back at the end of winter and unseals the cave, that if the child was meant to survive, that the child would be there, and was. So, Lone Wolf and Cub, what a great story. You ever read it?
No.
It's good. Stephen?
No, I haven't actually.
Absolute classic. Get yourself down to Forbidden Planet. It's a bit of a peach. I think they did some films back in the day as well. They were called the Baby Cart movies. They were essentially Lone Wolf and Cub, but it's fantastic. It got these swords and stuff sort of packed into the sides of like this bamboo sort of mock pram thing that he had for the little child to go into, and it followed like the child's life lessons and the lead wandering as a samurai. It's they're really, really good. Big inspiration on Frank Miller as well. Back in the day.
That doesn't surprise me actually, knowing how like tonally his stuff is.
It's beautiful artwork as well. So let's bounce into stuff. It's been fun to delve sort of way back before Souls and see sort of where folks first developed an eye for play, for writing, for reading, all that kind of stuff. So given your choice of career, sir, did you write a lot as a child, and what sort of stories did you find yourself crafting?
I didn't write a lot as a young child. I read a lot. I read profusely as a young boy. I think so I was never very good at anything physical, like sports or anything. So I ended up reading
You're
a
among
lot.
friends here, don't
Yeah, it's all good.
Well, I played on the left wing for school. I'll have none of that.
Yeah, I never got anywhere near that pitch. So yeah, I read a lot, and I read very widely because my mum's an English teacher.
Okay.
So she wasn't back then; she is now. But she always encouraged me to read, and she always had a weird selection of books. Like I think I read Dracula and Frankenstein when I was like 10 or 8 or something like that. Didn't really get it at the time, but I would read anything in the house. And then in my teenage years, all I really wrote was roleplay campaigns. When I discovered, it's about the same time I discovered Games Workshop and Magic the Gathering. I discovered D&D, and it was like that Renaissance year of discovering all these nerd things that existed. And I really took to writing the campaigns for me and my friends, and so whenever we did a roleplay campaign, be it like Star Wars, D&D, Warhammer Fantasy, I would always sort of be the one to volunteer to sort of write that, and I never stopped doing that, and I think that's where I started to love writing. But I didn't really, it wasn't something I considered as a profession until quite late on. I did sciences at college, which I didn't really take to after all, sort of flunked all my A-levels really. I went to uni to do military history, so I liked my history modules, and I was quite good at writing essays. Cool. And then after that, I did a games degree at the same university at Salford. And I was kind of looking more at sort of design, really, when I first started, like game design. I did that for a little while, and then I think it was in my second year, there was like a narrative module, and I got like 97 in it. I think it was my highest grade by about 30 points. So that kind of like sort of rang a bell in my brain. It's like, oh, maybe I should look at this a bit more. And
what was it that lit a fire under you for that one in particular? Because I still remember stuff in English classes at school where all of a sudden we'd go from like really dull books to something like a rag of bone and a hank of hair, and I got like a science fiction story to tuck into, and all of a sudden I was writing loads of essays and drawing pictures and all that kind of stuff. So what was it that sort of pushed you on in that regard?
I mean, I think it was just because it was like creative freedom. Like the module was like basically come up with a game narrative and a world, and like do a document about it, and like do like an opening cutscene. It was just the creative freedom of it, and it was like I've always loved world building, and I've always loved like characters. So to just be given complete free reign to write like anything and to do anything, I came up with my own, like it was sort of loosely based on like ancient Egypt. It was like my own ancient Egypt with magic and stuff like that. I think it was very heavily inspired by like the Tomb Kings of Khemri, which are one of the old Warhammer races, and like how they were like the undead Egyptian pharaohs, and I just did this. I was in New Zealand at the time when I wrote it as well. I was on vacation over the winter period visiting my mum and dad who lived out there at the time, and I just spent the entire time I was there writing this thing. And it just sort of it's anything fantasy and sci-fi always like appeals to me and gets me motivated to sort of do something with that. Even in like high school, every time I got a chance to creatively write a poem, it was always based in some kind of fantasy or sci-fi world.
I remember as a kid when I was super into like DC Comics in particular, but superheroes still sort of spread out towards Greek mythology and ancient Egypt and old school, like really sort of messy dark fables and stuff. They were all seemingly to me like but sort of made of the same cloth. So there was a recently as well, there was a Joe Rogan podcast that I watched with a 70-year-old Egyptologist who was talking about how they've found ancient ruins below what they thought were the ancient ruins of Egypt, which some other Egyptologists are just sort of washing aside, but they suggest that there's more there than we ever thought were possible. And even when he was telling these little stories, he was saying that you'll go into some tombs and they're pitch black, but when you look on the walls, there's no sign of ash or charcoal, meaning that the Egyptians had a light source that we just don't know about. and of this this, I forget what he called it exactly, but this sort of museum where all the ancient tomes were hidden, and like they all burned, and there were millions and millions of documents down there, and like really, really good. But this series that they talked about that he had, Magical Egypt, I think it's called. I looked on Amazon. It was like 120 quid for this set, and I was like, no, but it's on YouTube, so I'm really looking forward to sort of delving into that. So that's the guy was so engaging with this conversation anyway, but yeah, there's that sort of curiosity as a kid that loved those things, and also, you know, led me on to things like Ray Harryhausen and all those sort of things. It's yeah, that's definitely still there. It's
all a stepping stone, isn't it? It's like you discover one thing, and then it just snowballs. You then discover more things through that, and you learn about other things that are similar, and people recommend things, and it's such a, even now today I still get recommended books that I've never heard of, and then I pick it up and I love it, and I'm like, God, why did I not know about this earlier? Like, you know, I almost feel bad. It's like, I wish I'd read this like 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's like, so now whenever there's talk of like a new author or someone who's like really stirring things up on the sort of literary scene for sci-fi fantasy, I always immediately try and read them early.
But it is fun when you do get to them sort of a little late on, and there are those questions going on in your head, and you go, oh my God, that book was amazing. And then you look and there's like 6 books before it or something. You're like, this is going to be wonderful.
Well, I've got that right now. I've just started. I've almost finished Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich.
Yeah, my sister likes those.
Just started it. It's fantastic, and there's like 6 of them. So I'm just like so excited because I've got this brand new series to read. It's very much in the vein of Harry Dresden, if you've ever read those, like the Jim Butcher.
Oh yeah, my mate Pete that I watch a lot of tokusatsu stuff with is a real big fan of the books, and I think he quite enjoyed the TV series as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've going back to the role playing thing. I've played the role play game based in that universe, and that's pretty good as well. It's a great alternate, like it's almost. It's like Harry Potter, but adults. It's like Harry Potter adult. Like, he's a wizard and he lives in Chicago, and it's modern day Chicago, and he's like a PI, but it's like the magic isn't fun and like funny. It's all really dangerous, and he's really out of his depth, and he goes on all these wacky adventures. But it's written from the first person, so it's quite different. There's not many books that can pull off first person perspective, but it's very good and it's very funny. They're great. They're easy reads, which isn't to discredit the books. They're very well written, but they're very easy to read and digest, and you can just sit and like just binge read them, and it doesn't tire you out like some books, like, you know, like Silmarillion as an extreme example is a really hard book to read.
Dune did that to me.
Yeah, Dune, that's another good one.
That for like 2 days, and I'd read it, and I get to the end like, what the hell did I read?
Yeah,
and I had to go back and try again. Like, I don't understand what this book's trying to do, but yeah, I like it when they just flow off the page. Like, I've had that with The Dark Tower at the moment. Again, like something I should have read years ago, and I'm reading it now, and I'm just burning through it, and it's just so easy just to sit down and just blast through.
See, I don't know what this says about me, but I found that quite a struggle to get through.
The first book, yes.
The first book, definitely. The
first book is a nightmare of just horrible, just bad poetry words.
Yeah.
But it settles down by the second one, and it takes quite a while to kind of move on. But like, once you're in it, you're in it, you know. And I'm devouring it now. I sat there the other night and just blasted through the second half of the 4th book, which is a big one.
Yeah, I need to finish that series.
Sitting. Yeah, it's really good. Like, the 4th book is just a flashback. The whole book is a flashback. It's amazing.
Wow. Only Stephen King could ballsily do something like that.
I loved on writing in that regard, though. That you got this amazing rambling story about his life that gave so many lessons in creativity and thought. I just thought it was a joy to.
I love that book.
Joy to read.
I absolutely love that book. I've read it. I've just finished it again. Actually, I've read it I think 3 times now, and it's so incredible. Every time I read it, I feel like I learn more from it.
I loved it. I loved the bit that it still sticks in my mind with where he was saying about avoiding cliche, and if you give something specific, that it will stimulate the mind far more than the cliche. And he was saying, like, the example he gave was her dress was as black as night, as the cliche, and he said that if you said her dress was like a mechanic's handkerchief or something like that, it was like, oh, that's really good, because you can see sort of the texture and the way that light hits it.
Yeah.
The stuff where he was working in a factory as well, and they had to close it down because so much sawdust had gone under the floorboards, and some people could stay away and take time off, but there would be extra pay for those people that wanted to kind of go underneath the floorboards and kind of clear this stuff out.
Yeah.
And he asked his friend what it was like down there, and he says, "Oh, rats as big as dogs," and he was like, "Oh, okay then."
Well, it's like, I love the bit where he talks about how he came up with the idea for Carrie, and it's just incredible. The littlest thing. Well, how does he describe it? It's like the top of a tower. You can see the top of a tower poking up above the ground, and your job as a writer is to excavate like down to it, like to open it up, and like you see the initial idea, and then it's just the tip of the iceberg, and you've got to like pull away all the dirt to get to the actual like the full thing.
The thing in that regard I remember is when he sold Carrie and the check came through, and his wife was at a pottery class, and he says, "I just wanted to do something extravagant." He says, "So I went down to the local store, and the most expensive thing they got was a hairdryer."
Yeah, he bought her a hairdryer.
Yeah, and he says, "I just put it on the table, and when she came through the door, I was crying, and she was looking at the hairdryer and looking at me crying, and she couldn't quite twig what was going on, and I couldn't tell her because I was crying so much."
Yeah.
But he was this extremely extravagant and expensive hairdryer. And he says that, you know, we kind of held each other at that moment. We knew that we never want for anything else again.
Oh, that's when they sell the paperback rights, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he calls him up and just says, "You've just earned $200,000, which at that time was a lot of money."
But yeah, a really great book.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'd recommend it to anyone, even if you're not interested in writing. I think it's just a very good read.
Regarding like the dress and stuff and that kind of tone as well, like one of my favourite books ever is a book called Brave Story by Mayuki Miyabi, and she's a Japanese writer. By trade, she writes kind of thrillers and stuff, and this was her first turn at adult fiction, and it's very real world and very grounded, but it doesn't sacrifice a level of awe in that regard. If anything else, it's got the full paint box in there, and it's kind of about a young boy whose parents split up, and his mum tries to commit suicide, finding out what that his dad's been cheating on her and stuff. And there's rumours that there's in the village there's a building that constantly gets taken over to be developed into something else, but either the building company sort of goes bust, or there's an accident on site, and there's a rumour there that the building's haunted, and indeed there is something about the building. There's a portal to another world there, where he goes through, and he basically wants to set that there's a way of affecting our world from going into that world, and he wants to make everything all right. But there's also another boy at the school that's found the entrance, and rather than treating it as a living, breathing world, is just seeing it as something that's not real, and is going through just causing chaos to try and get the same sort of effect. And it turns out like this boy's I think his dad like killed his sister and killed his mum, and then killed him, like the dad sort of took his own life and stuff. So there are similar regards, but two people treating another world just in completely different ways, and it was fantastic. But that, like I say, there were real world sort of lessons and grounding in there, but the level of awe on the other side of it was just huge. And Miyabi recently did a book called Book of Heroes, which was another young adult story. But she's gone back to a thriller for her latest novel. But if you were reading it as purely as a real world thriller, you just see sort of real world lessons in there, and a real sort of natural take on a thriller. But if you read Book of Heroes, you can relate certain characters, certain motivations, and you can apply that over the top, and she's completely happy to do it and to draw that line between the two of them. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, that does sound really good.
And she also, in gaming terms, she also wrote the adaptation of Ico, which is a brilliant novel. I loved it to pieces. So, nerdy nerd.
I feel remiss not mentioning, if we're talking about great authors and great books, mentioning Brandon Sanderson.
Okay, tell me about Brandon Sanderson. It's not a name I know. I'm writing it down, though.
This is good, because I always love introducing people to... Like, there is nothing better than introducing people to books that are good. So I'm going to enjoy doing that. So he's written a load of books. The guy is a machine. He writes like 3 books a year. It's crazy. He just writes everything, and he writes so fast. But he has different series, and they're all different, but they all take place in his shared universe called the Cosmere. So there's little Easter eggs in the books that hint to the other books, but they're all standalone series. Now, with you mentioning comics, I think his the Reckoners series is one that you would enjoy. It's his take on superheroes. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a big superhero comic book person. I don't really read Marvel or DC. I go and watch the movies because they're entertaining, and I've got an interest in cinema, but I've never been into superheroes as a concept. And Brandon Sanderson's Reckoners series completely changed my opinion on superheroes, because he did them so well. Because basically the backstory is that there's this thing in the sky that comes above Earth, and it basically starts turning people into superheroes. And and then imagine what would happen in modern day society if people suddenly gain the power of gods, and they basically just start destroying the world and taking it over. And the first novel is set several years after the superheroes have basically divided up the territory of the world and taken over, and now they rule, and they all have their own little territories, and like there's no governments or anything. And some of them are really some of them are nice leaders, some of them are really bad, but they're all generally not very nice. But some of them rule humans in not too bad a way, where some of them are just like tyrants. And it follows a group of resistance fighters who are trying to overthrow Steelheart, which is the name of the first book. And he's basically impervious to damage, and they're trying the sort of rebels are a bunch of humans who try and fight the superheroes and try and find ways to kill them. And it's very, very good. The third book is already out. I haven't read it yet because I think the paperback one comes out this month. And I've got the other two in paperback, so I refuse to buy the hardback because I can't have a mismatched set.
The shelf will look weird.
Yeah, exactly. But they're very, very good books. Very, very easy to read, very enjoyable. His other series are Mistborn, which is now 6 books long.
Oh, that I've heard of.
Yeah, Mistborn is really popular. Really, really good. And then there's also... He's done a few standalones, which are really good, like just standalone fantasy books. Warbreaker is one of my favourites because it has this beautiful world building and this really, really interesting twist halfway through that sort of broke my heart. And then there's his big series. I don't know what the series is called, but it's The Way of Kings. Is the first book, and then there's Words of Radiance, which is the second book, but they are enormous, like 1,000-page, 1,200-page epic fantasy books. And they're very good. I like all his writing. I've read pretty much everything he's published so far, and I've not disliked any of it. But if you haven't read any of his work, I would definitely recommend going and picking up some of it and having a dabble, because he's a very, very good writer.
You see, the things that you were describing with Steelheart was almost, it drew sort of a similar line that I drew in the opposite direction as a kid, from superhero books into sort of Greek mythology with, the gods and things like that. So yeah, that makes me really curious.
Yeah, that series
the
is
side
really
of it in the modern day with getting into a lot of Japanese tokusatsu stuff. There's the life lessons and the warmth that I got from old school superhero comics, which have, I don't know, kind of now been done away with in many regards. I'm just seeing and loving anew.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting that that you see superheroes and Marvel and DC, they both take from ancient mythology of human culture, but I think it's because it's really interesting stuff. It's the first stories we sort of some of the first major stories we told as society, but also it's it's not copyrighted. You can use it in anything. Like, I've written things that have used it because it's completely free reign. You can use it, and there's no one, Whereas in an age now where like there's so many different ideas and so many different concepts, and a lot of it's copyrighted, and there's IP protection and stuff like that. It's nice to have something that you can use without fear of upsetting anyone.
Grant Morrison's Super Gods is a really good read in that regard. The rise of mythology and tales, and the burgeoning sort of movements of superhero stuff.
I think Neil Gaiman's just done a book about Norse mythology as well.
Oh, right, cool.
Like, I think released very, very recently. His take on Norse mythology.
So what were your favourite reads then from back when you were devouring everything as a blighter?
Well, obviously The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. They're some of my earliest. They're the books that I remember reading and my eyes going wide with, like, there are books like this, that sort of revelation. I read a lot of sort of Victorian horror literature. Like, I read a lot of Charles Dickens and Mary Shelley and Bram Stoker, just because my mum was interested in it and they were there, so I read them. What else did I read? I read a lot of Star Wars books actually as a kid. I really liked the Star Wars novels. Like, I read the Throne trilogy by Timothy Zahn very early on and loved them.
Absolutely, I'm with you completely, 200% on that.
Yeah, those books were incredible.
I didn't realise, I think it was the third book, I didn't realise it was coming out, and it was before payday at that point, and I sold a CD that I'd been lent to put it towards buying that book because I couldn't wait like 2 weeks. And then when I gave that CD back to that person like 2 weeks later, they were like, I'm sure it wasn't in this condition when I lent it to you. But those books are magnificent, and I love the way that he takes disparate groups within the story and just slowly starts to pull all of those threads together towards the climax.
Yeah.
And I still remember sort of the Corellian graveyard and the cloning chambers, Skywalker fighting like a clone of himself, and they built Thrawn up to be such a huge bad guy, and when they did off him, it wasn't cheap at all. No. It was like, oh, well played. I think part of the problem that I had with Force Awakens was I'd read those 3 books. They were set after Jedi. They were magnificent. And Force Awakens just felt like somebody had written down 10 things about Star Wars.
Well, because, I mean, we could probably talk about Force Awakens forever because there's lots to talk about with that film. But I think because that takes place so long after Jedi, I think you could still fit in the Throne trilogy, and it would still have happened, and then Force Awakens can still carry on, because Throne trilogy happens exactly after Jedi. Like, it starts pretty much where they left off, and then it's like that first 10-year period, whereas Force Awakens is like 20, 30 years later.
Okay, something
like that. So. Not that they have done that, and not that they are acknowledging that Thrawn was a character or anything like that. But although he's in something now. He is canon.
Is it the Rebels show?
Yeah, he's canon now. He's definitely in. So,
have you read any of his other Star Wars novels beyond that trilogy?
Yes, I think I read most of the ones that he wrote. Because when I find an author that I like, I generally consume anything that they've written. As a rule, I think I've read. But the Throne trilogy sticks out in my mind very vividly.
I remember reading those books at the time and just having a real thirst for more Star Wars novels, and I think the next one was like Kevin J. Anderson or something, and it was just garbage.
Yeah, it's funny because it reminds me, I don't know if you guys follow any Games Workshop based IPs or anything like that, but they've got the Black Library, which is their publication arm, and they have this, I think it's like 30-book series now about the Horus Heresy, which is like a lot of them are New York Times bestsellers. And the first trilogy of that series was really good, written by the likes of Dan Abnett and Gav Thorpe and stuff like that. But then because it got so big and so popular, they now just get lots of authors to write lots of books within that sort of IP titling. And it's similar to how the Star Wars novels was. There's this boom of books, and then some of them are really good and some of them are really bad. and it's just like there's this mix because everyone's writing it.
Yeah, I mean, with Abnett and Lanning, they took over because one of the biggest things when I was growing up was Legion of Superheroes, and they took over that and ran it until the point where DC became like the new 52.
Yeah.
And their take on Legion of Superheroes was just godlike, absolutely superb, really underrated writers as well, I think.
Oh, Dan Abnett's an absolutely fantastic writer.
Also puts out quite a body of work as well.
Yeah, he does, yeah. I mean, I think, apart from Sanderson, I've probably read the most stuff by Dan Abnett from one writer. I think I've read a lot of his stuff.
And I think that Abnett and Lanning's Guardians of the Galaxy run was a big influence on the movie as well.
Yeah. I think he's still doing Guardians. Oh no, I think he's on. I follow him on Twitter. I think he might be on Aquaman now. Don't quote me on that. I don't know.
But
not specific.
They did a good run on Aquaman back in the day as well, I remember.
Yeah.
So.
No, yeah, he's Dan Abnett. In fact, I read not too long ago. I read a 2-part comic series by him called Wild's End.
Okay. What's that?
It's basically Sylvanian Families meets War of the Worlds. And it's incredible.
Oh, that sounds ace.
It's exactly as good as it sounds.
Oh man.
Yeah, I wrote a review about it on my blog because I had to try and get people to read it, and they both the artist and the writer Dan Abnett, they both retweeted it and said thanks for the kind words and put it out there.
What's it called again?
Wild's End.
Wild's End.
It's just a two-part volume, but it's really good. It's really funny because the deaths are all horrific, but it's like happening to like foxes and pigs and badgers. It just adds a level of comic to it, but they're not silly characters. They're like, it's set in like an old English village, so it's like proper. I think it's set in that same period, so it's like 1912, something like that. It's quite early on in the 1900s, so it's very prim and proper, this little village, and then aliens attack it.
See, now you say it's comedy, but I'm getting Farthing Wood flashbacks now.
It's a little bit, actually. It's a bit like that.
That emotionally destroyed me as a child.
It is. There's some pretty horrendous moments in it where, like, a character that you've come to like, you think, oh, he's adorable, how nice is this character? And then he gets, like, his face melted off or something, and you're like, oh my god.
And often it can hit home harder because it is like a cute character. I remember, what was it? Stephen Thompson's Goodbye Chunky Rice, which is a beautiful, beautiful graphic novel about like these two sort of animalistic characters that live together, and one of them just decides they want to go off and travel the world, and it explores one of them like dealing with loneliness and with reflection, and the other one also sort of covering that, but this kind of amazing discoveries they're making, and like wild storms hitting the boat as they adventure on further. And I'm choking up a bit now, but in the midst of it, like missing one another. Fantastic little book.
I think it's a good like storytelling device to use something like that to tell like really sort of evocative stories. It's like Toy Story. Like people get choked up on Toy Story, and it's like I don't think it would have the same emotional impact if it was people in the same situation. Like if you just took the story, like the basic core elements, and applied it to a group of people, which there's probably a bunch of things that do that, it wouldn't have anywhere near as much resonance as it does with toys and their abandonment issues with their owners and how they treat each other. It just, like, I think Pixar have always been very good at that, like taking like things that allow them to tell really sort of emotional stories and still apply it to kids without like traumatizing them.
There was a Korean horror story that I saw with, I think it's called The Doll Master, which was about all these people that had been invited to this old mansion because this doll creator was going to make dolls of all of them. And you walked into the room and there might be like mannequins hanging from the ceiling, or it was all like really sort of creepy and stuff. And one by one, the people in this mansion started being offed, and it turned out that the little girl that was offering them was a doll that one of them had thrown away as a child because she didn't want it anymore.
Oh my god!
And it was bitter, and it was like murdering them all. Like the opening half an hour was like really sort of slow and really hard to watch, but it sort of ties into a lot of horror tropes. But it is genuinely freaky as anything. If you like, when you see two of the characters walk into a room, and like I say, literally like a shop dummy is hanging from the ceiling. So there's literally a meter between like this mannequin's face and where you would be lying in bed. It's like, oh yeah, I like that a lot.
Sounds like Cluedo meets Chucky.
It's a fun little film. You can find it for about £3 on DVD. But
I think I've seen that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
My favourite Toy Story thing was on the news this morning on Six Music, where it says that a gentleman who last year changed his name to Buzz Lightyear was fined £200 for speeding in a Corsa.
Nice. That's
well
amazing.
Played, living the dream. Yeah. Truly living the dream.
I hope he shouted to infinity and beyond while he was doing it.
That would be great as he passed the camera.
Yeah.
like one hand on the steering wheel and the other one like punching ahead of it. That would be joyous. So, sort of game narrative and design wise, where did you go beyond university? Where lay the formative first steps?
So I started in, it was like mid 2010. Straight out of uni, I got a QA job, like contracted QA job, testing games with Traveller's Tales, which the studio that make the Lego games.
Mm-hmm. Oh right, cool.
So very familiar.
Yeah,
and obviously, like a game that's stupendously close to my heart is Lego City Undercover, which is for me one of the greatest games on the Wii U.
I'm glad you said that, because that's the one I'm most proud of working on.
Really? You worked on that?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ!
Well, I'll get to that. That's in the story. So I started as QA, and I did that for I think 3 months, and then they advertised some design positions internally. So I was like, okay, well I'll apply for that, and I got it luckily, which was really cool. So I went into the development side of it straight away from QA after 3 months, and started working on. In fact, I think there was a brief period where I was working on Lego Star Wars 3: The Clone Wars when I first got the position, and then I transitioned straight onto Lego City Undercover, where I was a designer. So I helped, and I was on it for quite early, so I helped design the sort of islands that it was divided up to. So I did a lot of design work on downtown, and then I did that was quite a long project cycle.
I'm nerding out to such a degree on this front because I've bounced on a trampoline about Lego City Undercover. To anyone who will listen, and lots of people who won't listen, but I will say it anyway, the funniest game that I've ever played in my life, and there are still jokes in that which still make me giggle, like the point where it was one of the mining levels where you jump into like a massive cavern and it's like and then it just goes all very silent. It goes like, after a while you really do get used to the terror.
Well, that is down to, I'll have to shout out here to Graham Goring, who was the writer on that game. He's a friend of mine. He was a designer, and we had an external writer, but they weren't really happy with his work, and so I can't remember how it happened, but someone suggested that Graham give it a go, because Graham back then was doing a lot of stand-up.
I think I might know the answer to this, because I spoke to, is it Jonathan Smith that's the head of Traveller's Tales?
He was. I don't think he's there anymore. I've not been there for many years. So.
Because he was he said at Game City, because I asked about Lego City last year when he did a presentation, and he said that at the point where there was a Game City festival, Graham was doing stand-up just round the corner.
Yes.
And he went to see him, and he said he thought he was brilliant, and then somebody pointed out that he actually worked for his company.
Yeah.
And he said that's kind of where he started working on that. But hasn't Graham worked on loads of bringing back loads of old games like Whizball and stuff like that as well?
I know he's been at Traveller's Tales for a long time. I know he was there from pretty much the beginning, I think. I don't really know what he did in his spare time with regards to that, but I know he's been lead story writer at TT since City. He now helps out on all the games story wise. But yeah, Graham's a an amazing writer and a very, very funny guy.
Pan, you were down here when we did the Kung Fu level. It's like, I know Kung Fu, also plumbing. Watch out for the guys in the brown trousers. They're a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
And all that sort of stuff. We sat like in the living room, properly pissing ourselves laughing.
Wasn't there a Discworld joke in there somewhere as well?
There was, because you got that and I didn't. But what a game! And also going across the landscape by getting into a cannon that you would fire pits out of.
Yeah.
All this sort of stuff. It was just it's a really, really underappreciated game, and I think to get. There's levels of Monty Python in that script. There's an advert that's going on Twitch at the minute for some sort of drill company, and it's the guy who's doing the American accent in this drill advert is the guy that voiced Chase McCain.
Oh, right. Yeah, no,
So,
I mean it's nice to hear you say those words about that game, because it was a lot of hard work and a lot of people put a lot of effort into it. I mean, I was only one of quite a large team, but we all loved that game. We all loved making it, and I think after that there wasn't a Lego game that I liked working on more than that. That was my favourite sort of Lego game experience, and it is a shame that it was only on the Wii U, because
it's one of those games that held its price though. Like you'll always see like a Lego game will like drop in time for Christmas, or like regular games do. You'll see them like for £20-25, that kind of stuff, sort of after a few months. That held on to its price forever.
Yeah.
When people were interested in that, or you were trying to talk them into it, they'd be looking at the price, and it hadn't shifted from like £40.
Yeah.
What a belter! I'm in awe of the fact that you worked on that, because Paddy knows as well that I love that game so much.
Yeah, it's always nice whenever I like talk with my Traveller's Tales friends who work there or have moved on now, and we catch up. It always comes up, Lego City, because we're all so proud of it. Because that was the first proper console Lego game that the studio did. Because I worked at TT Fusion, which was the sister studio to Traveller's Tales, and a lot of the like main console games had always been done by the studio in Knutsford. We were based in Wilmslow, and Lego City was the first sort of proper Lego console game that we got to do. So a lot of care and love went into that game. I think more so than the normal Lego games. I mean, people love the Lego games, but Lego City I think was something special.
Genuinely, I 100% agree with you.
Did you ever play the other game we did in that? We did a handheld.
3DS one?
Yeah. That was like a prequel.
Was it any good?
Well, I'm going to say yeah, because I worked on it.
What a question to ask. Is it good? Nah, wank.
I mean, it was.
I remember at the time. I think I was. There's so much in Lego City Undercover that I was still sort of chipping into that, and I noticed that the handheld game didn't get as much love, and I think I just didn't really pay much attention to it sort of thereafter. But it's always been one of those where I've kind of had a sly eye on it in stores and just gone.
I think the problem with it is it's got the same sort of humour and charm, but I think it's because it's on a handheld and it's still open world. It sort of pushes the systems probably beyond its limits, and it's held back by like the hardware. I think that's probably why it wasn't as loved as the Wii U one.
I'd love to see like Lego City Undercover maybe get a Switch release and see what like the extra
I would like that too.
power
Actually, I don't really have. It's been a long time since I've been there, so I don't really have any insider information from that place anymore. But I'd love that too, because I'd love to see it put on another console where it could shift more units. Because I think it's, like I say, it's one of those games that a lot of people know about, but not a lot of people played because simply it was on the Wii U, and the Wii U didn't really sell all that well.
It'd also be belter to like take on a plane or something like that and occupy you for an 8 to 9 hour journey, because there's just so much in it. And God, that script. I don't know. Sorry, I'm nerding out like super hard about this because I never get to talk about Lego City Undercover. So sorry, please carry on.
What was I? So after Lego City, I worked on a bunch of other Lego games for another couple of years. The handheld Lego City game being one of them. Lego Hobbit, Legos Legends of Chima. I did a bunch of those, but I eventually got a bit sort of jaded and fatigued with making Lego games. I wanted something else, and there wasn't really anywhere for me to progress there. as a writer, which by that point I'd kind of decided that's what I wanted to do. So I just started applying places. Just on evenings I'd go home, write some stuff, make some stuff, and then I'd just apply. And I didn't really expect to hear back from anyone. I applied to the States and Canada, and then I applied to CDP, like completely not expecting to hear back from them at all. And then I got an email back saying, they're interested, and I had a few interviews and did a design test for them because I applied for Quest Designer, so I wasn't part of the writing team at CDP. I was Quest Designer.
So what sort of, just
what does that
to jump back,
entail?
just to jump back as well, what sort of stuff were you making for the applications as well, and what did, as Paddy said, what did the design test entail?
Oh, so when I was doing sort of just doing stuff for the applications, I was just trying to bump out my CV a bit. I was writing like scripts, like sort of short screenplays. I was writing I was sort of typing up some of my roleplay campaigns into a sort of readable format so I could put them online. I was working in game editors and just writing little content. So I did some stuff in the Shadowrun editor. I did some stuff in Unity. Just creating little, like, sort of vertical slices, I guess you'd call them, like little short sections that demonstrated gameplay and narrative, but weren't full-fledged games. And then the design test. So I applied as a Quest designer for Cyberpunk.
Okay.
And so when I got the call back and I had a test, it was a Cyberpunk-based test. So I had to create I think the test was I had to concept, prototype, and implement a Cyberpunk quest from beginning to end. So I had to come up with the concept, the characters, the narrative, the storyline. I had to implement it in any. They said you can use any sort of game tech. You do it in anything. And I had to create the quest, create the actual sort of design of it, and then implement it so it would work, so they could play it fully, and then write a document up to accompany it. So I took 2 weeks off work, and I got to it, and I made a quest for Cyberpunk, which had its own storyline and characters, and I used the Shadowrun editor simply because it had a lot of assets I could reuse because it was a cyberpunk-y style game, and it had a built-in conversation system because it was an RPG. So it just cut out a lot of the technical limitations of using other stuff. And I created this little quest and this little storyline, and then I sent it off to them, and they really liked it. And so they flew me out to Poland to have another interview where I met like all the big heads of departments and stuff, and saw the studio and saw Poland because I'd never been to Poland. And then they offered me the job, and I moved to Poland and started working for them.
Were you a fan of Witcher 1 and 2 at that point, I presume?
Yeah, I'd already played the Witcher games. I'm a big RPG player anyway, so I knew who they were and I knew of their work, which is why I thought I'd never hear back from them, really. Because The Witcher 2 was amazing, and I was like, these guys are top of their game. And then I went out there and started working, and then when I got there, I was going to go on Cyberpunk, and when I got there, pretty much straight away, they were like, so we're finishing The Witcher 3, kind of need help on that for the next sort of year. Would you be up for doing that? Well, not that they phrased it like that. It was more of a, you're going to help on The Witcher 3. It wasn't like I got this nice option. It was just everyone came off Cyberpunk and went straight on to Witcher 3. And I worked on that for the sort of last year and a bit of its development.
What sort of stuff then? Because were you working on brand new quest designs, or sort of tidying up existing ones, or did you have much scope to, I don't know, push the story on beyond what the things that had already been written, or was it really kind of working to more of a guideline?
No, so the main storyline was pretty much nailed down, so I didn't really get stuck into that. But I did a lot of the side quest content. A lot of those didn't exist at all at that point, so there was a lot of we were coming up with new side quest ideas, and then it was coming up with those quests, implementing them, and then doing a lot of what we call the living world content, which was dynamic events in the world and things that you would see narratively and gameplay wise that didn't necessarily sit within the confines of a quest itself, but were little moments where, a good example is you would find a note under in like a river on like a wrecked truck that had fallen into the river. You'd find like a chest, and there was a note in there that talked about the people who were escaping the war. That was their not truck. What am I talking about? Like cart.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Go truck.
Yeah, they didn't have a truck. So it was like their cart, and it had like a note about how they were escaping with their valuables to escape the war, and they'd been attacked, and this thing had fallen into the river, and they were presumed dead. And then it talks about the guards who were with them and where they ran to, and then you go and find that area, and they just describe it. So you have to go find that in the world, and then you'd find that, and you get another note, which then the guards talking about how they were pursued by monsters, and then they buried the treasure to come back to once they'd shaken the monsters off. And obviously they never did, because you find it on one of their corpses. And then you go and find their treasure, and it's just hidden away in this little alcove or underneath a building, and you find this treasure. And that was like what we consider the living world, where it isn't a quest, where you don't get a quest log and there's not objectives and there's no markers. It's just this piece of like content in the world that helps make the world feel alive and fleshes it out, but without actually giving you a direct objective to do.
Yeah, I really like that sort of stuff. I've played all of it now, and I really like bumping into that sort of thing, because it's not, like you say, I find that sometimes with other RPGs that you get quest overload. Skyrim particularly, I stopped playing Skyrim because I just like, there's too much here, I can't be bothered, I have 1,000 markers, I don't care about any of this anymore.
Dragon Age Inquisition was like that for me. Just all of the, even though people said, "Oh, follow the main quest line, it's great," if you're scattering things all over the place and they're rubbish, I lose interest in your world.
Yeah, but The Witcher does, it kind of compacts it all together. So you're following a story, but it's not like, oh well, I went to the other side of the map. You're like, well, I'm not going over there. It's all quite compact and within the reason of where you'd expect someone would flee to. And that sort of really just fleshed out and gave you something smaller to do in between the big, the grandiose stuff, I guess.
Yeah,
it's keeping an eye on sort of the big prize, I guess, and like the smaller stuff as well. There was a Game City a few years ago. There was Chris Avallone, who worked on the early Fallouts and Fallout New Vegas and stuff, was talking about that kind of balance between where people might wander in the game and things that they discover early and the things that they might discover later and stuff, and that was fascinating to hear. But it must have been incredible working within the scope that and the ambition of that project, and seeing it all to come together.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I learnt so much being there, and it was a very different shift tonally in terms of how the studio operated compared to TT. Like, everyone at CDP was insanely passionate about what they were doing, and everyone was striving to make the best game possible. It was never really, obviously there were deadlines and milestones, but it was never about that. It was always about the quality of the work, and if something wasn't up to that quality, it was either like reworked, redesigned, or it was scrapped completely. And there was a lot of stuff that was just completely scrapped because the higher ups didn't think it was like good enough to be in the game. But it was also really scary, because I remember feeling very strongly sort of the last 6 months before release, I was playing the game and implementing content and like playing through the content and tweaking it, and I was thinking like, oh no, this is really buggy, and it doesn't feel very good. And I was really like worried about it, like really worried about it, like not even a little bit. I was like genuinely like, oh god, like this isn't going to go well. But I think it's just, obviously I was very wrong. But I think that's just designer, like when you're in something so deeply, and when you've been looking at something for so long, you kind of, all you see is the flaws, and all you see is the problems that need fixing. And you don't really get a chance to step away and appreciate it. Like now I haven't worked on it for, just over a year now. And I recently put it in my PS4 and started to play it, because I felt like enough time had passed where I could. Because I don't really play the games I've worked on like terribly. I
can see that, yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted to revisit The Witcher, and I started playing it, and it blew me away, because I think there's enough distance now where I could see the work that I'd done, and I knew the bits I'd done, and I still remembered sort of doing things on it, but it was still far enough away where it felt a little bit like someone else's past.
Almost like a little bit surreal, I guess.
It was a bit, yeah. I mean, there were bits where I'd find something and I'd be like, oh, I remember doing that, or oh, I remember when like Dennis did that, or I remember when Kuba did that, and I remember like talking with them and seeing them do it and stuff. But it was just amazing to see it and to appreciate it as a consumer. And it still baffles me that it did as well as it did, and it won all the awards. Like, it's still completely, like, I can't process it. Like, how the fact that I was a part of that, and it all felt like now it feels like a dream, like it never actually happened. Like, did I really live in Poland for like a year and a half? And did I really work on that kind of game? But it's nice.
How was Poland as well?
I really like Poland.
Going from the UK to like being within another culture, another country, and to, as well as working within such a passionate group.
It was definitely a culture shock. Like, it is a very different place. But I really liked it. I really liked living in another country. I mean, obviously, it's now why I'm doing it again. But it was really good. It was really interesting to live in another culture. I mean, the language was impossible. Like, I tried to learn it, but I didn't get very far. But yeah, I thought I really liked. I didn't see a great deal of Poland, admittedly. I only saw Warsaw, Krakow, and we went to the lakes in the north of Poland for like a little holiday. Like, these beautiful, massive lakes for a summer once, and that was really pretty and really nice. But Poland's an enormous country. It's like bigger than Germany, I think. So there's a lot to it, and I didn't see a great deal of it. But what I did, I loved Warsaw. I loved Krakow. I think I've been to Bielsko-Biała as well, because I'm currently writing a game called 7: The Days Long Gone with a little indie studio called Fool's Theory, who are people made mostly of people I used to work with at CDP who left and went independent. I'm writing a game with them at the moment, and so I've popped out to where they are in Poland, Bielsko-Biała, which is in the south of Poland, near the Czech border. It's a nice little city, but that's very, very Polish. Like, Warsaw, you can kind of get away with speaking English, like, mostly. But in Bielsko, it was no, like, there was very little English to be heard.
Because I know Pad's completed everything to do with The Witcher 3. I've got it and really haven't touched it, but from looking from afar and seeing the reactions, it was the sort of thing that I imagined this generation of consoles as being about, rather than just being. I mean, I always point to like Arkham Knight with being. I don't see a point of making things that crisp and that beautiful when you've got nothing there. You've got nothing in your city, and I look backwards towards Dragon's Dogma, and I see just how ambitious that was, and how much they put into it, and how much nuance. And I always imagined this generation being that tenfold, and that's kind of what I see from like the Witcher 3 stuff.
I mean, it's hard to compare it to anything else right now, because there hasn't really been another big RPG that's come out since that. I mean, you could maybe say Fallout 4, but I think Fallout's a very different game. But
I think we're probably going to see the most likely mix with something like Final Fantasy 15 or something, maybe.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it is weird at the moment. Like, the big RPGs that have come out have been Skyrim Remastered, which is just a game from last gen.
Which is woo.
It's an amazing game. I loved it, and it's very like pretty. But like you say, I think what The Witcher does well is it populates a world to a point where the world feels alive, and it feels lived in. I think. Yeah, there's not much else like that.
The little comments you get as you walk around are the ones that always get me, because Laura watched me play quite a lot of The Witcher. And there's one point, I like that everyone spits on you as you walk past, like Garrett looks hard as well, like you wouldn't, but everyone gobs on you. And there was one guy just walked past and said, "Wash your fucking hair," or something like that, and she just pissed herself laughing. So it is about you, this game, isn't it? I was like, stop it. Like, just the little oddments. Like, there was a guy trying to broker a deal with a prostitute. He's like, "Oh, go on, do half price." And she says, "All right, for half price, you can take off half my clothes." He goes, "Front half."
My biggest sort of Witcher 3 touchdown is my friend Charlotte, who is such a super fan of the games that rather than play the latest piece of DLC, she went back to the original Witcher. Then she played the original Witcher. Then she played The Witcher 2 again, and she's now going through The Witcher 3 and trying to do absolutely everything before moving on to the new DLC.
That's really hardcore.
Because she doesn't want to say goodbye to these characters, and every time that I speak to her, she's like completely and utterly nerding out on nuances or quests that she's found that she didn't originally, or trying to do certain things with characters that are more towards the place that she'd like to leave the characters rather than her initial decisions, and she's proper hardcore about it. But that's she's always my touchstone with regards to this, and seeing the joy and the sparkle in her eyes when she starts talking about it, it's a pleasure to see, to be honest.
I mean, that's why. I mean, as a developer, that's why we do what we do. I think is for stuff like that. Like, I love when, like just then before when you were talking about Lego City, like it's even now after all these years, it's still nice to hear that the work that you did and like the crunch and the hours that you put in and all that like frustration and effort is all worth it because people enjoy it. And that's why I think a lot of developers, me included, why we do what we do and why we do push ourselves and have that passion, because people like you and like your friend like get such a kick out of it. But I mean, it is a testament to how good a developer CDP is that people have that reaction to their games, and people, I've heard that a lot, that people don't want to play the last DLC because they don't want it to end. And I think that is in a world where there's so much media to consume and so many games to play, so many books to read, so much TV to watch, so many films to watch. When someone can say, "I don't want to play this because I don't want this to end," in a world where there's so much to consume, I think that's an incredible feat to get to. When people are that passionate about it, and I think it just goes to show like the kind of developer they are.
Well, I know that she was counting down the days until she knew when that last DLC was going to be released. But at the point where it was there, and there was suddenly this block and this kind of lump in her throat that she wanted to go back and to explore the first game that she hadn't, and then to replay the second game, and then to do this with the current game as well. That's a level of fandom and a level of heart and caring. And she started reading the books at the same time to get like a different take on the world than like the original author's vision.
Yeah,
that's something else entirely. But again, as you were saying, that where there's always like the new thing, the flashier thing. This has just come out, or this is getting good reviews, and still not wanting to step away, and not feeling that you can step away from that world is incredible.
Well, going back to what this kind of podcast was about originally, I feel very much about the Souls games like that. Like that's how I feel about Dark Souls 1. Like, I have played Dark Souls 1 way more than pretty much any other game, I think, because I just love that game, and I love the universe, and I love the everything about it. So I can understand it.
Did Souls sort of factor into your gaming life then?
Excellent segues, by the way.
Yeah. I remember I was at TT, so I only discovered it when I was in the industry, and I think I just picked up a PS3. Or I had a PS3 already, but not for very long. I think I bought it when Uncharted 2 came out, so that might have been a couple of years before. And
yeah, I think you got yours at the same time I got mine.
Yeah, that was the right time to buy one, I think.
No, the first day was the right time.
No, it definitely wasn't.
It was outside game at 7 o'clock. Don't judge me.
Hashtag breadbin.
And yeah, I think it was the lead coder, Phil, who mentioned the game, like Demon Souls, because Dark Souls wasn't out. It was just Demon Souls, because we were talking about PS3 game stuff. And so I picked up Demon Souls and played it and loved it. And then they announced...
Did you bounce off it originally, or did you get straight in? Because
no, I got stuck into
bounces.
It. I got well stuck into it because I loved that it was like dark fantasy. I loved that it was like steeped in like mythos stuff, and it was all weird and creepy, and it was hard as hell. And I liked the sort of risk reward and difficulty sort of puzzle element to it. Where it's like,
talk to me about how the atmosphere hit you as well, especially as a fan of not just games but like the fantasy generally, because I can still put on that game and the level of design and atmosphere and turning the telly up and just listening to all of the noises of the wind and the monsters, and just how did that hit you?
I think the first thing that it's hard to like think about all those first moments. I think there's a few moments. So when you come out in that first area, I can't remember what it's called.
Bolitarian Palace.
Yes, where you see along the ramparts and the sort of towers along that rampart, and you can see all the way along, and there's the dragon, and it's like, I was like, wow, this is, like, I know I'm going over there all the way up to that main castle. I know I've got to get through all of this, and that this is going to be an ordeal. I think that's when the scale of the game hit me. It was like, wow, this game it doesn't mess around. But I found it really refreshing that the basic enemies could just gut me, like not even by trying all that hard. Like, the normal enemies were a definite threat, and that was such a weird thing for me to experience after playing, because I'd played like loads of RPGs and like World of Warcraft, and like the basic enemies are never a threat. They're just there to farm experience from and to just give you something to kill. But in Demon Souls, the basic enemies, like if you block at the wrong time, or you get into a fight with, like, stuck yourself in a corner, or you get to a fight with multiple of these, they're going to kill you. They're going to fuck you up. And
there was that degree of kind of reading them as well, that you get the ones that would just have a tiz with a dagger, and you wait until they were knackered.
Yeah.
Or the ones that jumped in with a sword against you, and it wasn't as much like they're going in for a leaping attack. It's like, I can use that against you.
Yeah, it was that learning, this level of the back and forth.
And, reading them,
It was very good. I love that element to it, and it felt really refreshing. I think when I really got into it, when I really started like really liking it, was probably when I got to the prison.
Oh God!
With the lantern guys, who was like straight out of a H.P. Lovecraft story. I was like, these guys are cool and terrifying, and I love this place, and I love the tension of it.
That dim light and that ting,
that ting ting just round the corner, and then it runs at you. It like runs at you with such, like, they have this really steady movement, this really like calm movement normally, and then when they stun you and they just run at you with this vigor, and you're like, oh my God, they just don't expect it.
It seems very, very dreamlike. I'm always shaken by things that don't move in a human way or move in an unnatural way, and that threw me. And I think even the level of, I mean, I'm a nerd for World 4 in Demon Souls, but there's a real level of clockwork about it, which I find fascinating. That these sort of Cylon skeletons can kind of wander towards you and try and stab you, but then it's almost like we'll tick away and just turn back and trot from one side to another as they walk back calmly, and that really unnerves me as well. That level of timing.
Yeah, I've always loved the creature design in the Souls games. It's like some of my favourite creature designs in any game, especially Dark Souls. Like, Dark Souls is arguably my favourite game that they've made, and I think it's because, like, the bosses, the creatures, they're all just so interesting and well designed.
Were you day one then for Dark Souls?
Oh yeah. By this point, I'd completed Demon Souls, and I was all on board for. In fact, I remember getting Dark Souls. We got it, and we nicked one of the PS3s, took it into all the meeting rooms, and at lunch we played through the Asylum. Just all sat around watching as one of the guys played through the Asylum.
Was that person familiar with Souls in themselves, or was it a case of like giving it to somebody that wasn't and just seeing how they reacted?
No. This was like the Souls. This was the Souls fan club of the studio. There was like 6 or 7 of us who just loved those games, and it was just, as soon as it came. In fact, it became a ritual every time a new one came out. It'd be like someone would get the collector's edition, someone would order the collector's edition from Japan that you couldn't get over here, and you'd get every toy in the office from somebody, and we'd all go around and look at the books and look at the figures and the collectibles, and as soon as I discovered the Souls games, I've played every single one that's come out and loved them all.
I'm fascinated by a group of artists and game designers and writers sort of gathering at work around a game like that, and there being such a degree of passion around something new and not just exploring it from a professional point of view and seeing sort of peeling back the layers and seeing how it ticks, but just losing yourself in the magic of it.
Well, I think more than any other industry, it's because the game industry is just filled with people who just like games. Like, there's very few people I meet who are in the games industry who don't like games at all. There is a few. They're usually artists or animators who are in it for just progressing to be able to do their art, but it's very rare, especially in designers, writers, coders. They're all usually hardcore gamers, and it's great when, because I don't even see them. You don't even see other studios as competitors. I never have. Like, even if they're making a similar game to you, it's like they're not competition. They're people making their passion game like we are, and I want to enjoy their work, and they'll enjoy mine. It's always nice when a game like Souls comes out, and it's great when you get, like you say, when you get a designer and a coder and an animator and a writer, and you're all talking about the same game, and you're all talking about how much you love it, but you're all talking about the different parts of it that you love. Like, the designer will love the way the combat is so slick and the movement's so good, and the animator will talk about how the bosses move, and I'll talk about how that bit of lore connects to that, and I love how that's connected to the main story, which you don't really get a main story because it's so abstract in how it tells you everything.
So how soon did you click onto the lore aspect of Dark Souls? Because it wasn't really there to such a degree in Demons, and it was kind of hidden away, and we didn't. I mean, the first time that I played through Dark Souls, it just did it in the same way as I did with Demons. I loved the designs, I loved the world, I loved being there, and then slowly the lore aspects started to creep up with the storytellers on YouTube, and that became part of the conversation around the game. And I think like you in Demon's Souls, I didn't really sort of delve into it too much. I liked what was there and I liked what it gave me, but I didn't really. I guess I didn't realize that the lore was there; it was just hidden away. And then when it came to Dark Souls, like the intro cutscene they have for that game, and the way it talks about the lords of the Lord Souls, and the first four, and the pygmy, and Lord Gwyn, and it's talking about all this. I was like, oh, this is really they've really thought about this. So I was like, where is it? And then obviously as the game went on, I would start to learn about certain elements and the way certain things connected. And I think when I started finding the breadcrumbs was when you fight Sif. And he's got the sword of Artorias, and then you get the sword, and it's like, oh, this belonged to one of the knights of Lord Gwyn, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, right, okay, so where's he? And then what happened to him? And who's this giant wolf? And then I just started putting the pieces together, and I got totally immersed in discovering the story of this world and all the things that happened, and like Sif the Scaleless, and how he betrayed the dragons, and how like the Daughters of Chaos and Izalith, and how all that connected to it, and how they were trying to create magic to combat the darkness, and then they created chaos by accident, and then how that whole turned on them. And I just went straight down that rabbit hole and just got lost in it. How did you feel when you were speaking about Sif and about the legend of Artorias and the whispers that were hidden around the game at that point? How did you feel when you met him?
Oh, I loved it. Although I hated that fight because he was such a hard ass. Like, that fight gave me so much trouble. But when you meet him, I think what's better about when you meet him is when you meet Sif, the actual Sif, protecting the shield, and you're just like, oh.
And you also realise within the ghostly visions before that the cat and the Forest Covenant, they were protecting Sif.
Yeah. I love how it's amazing, because you look at that game and they've got this narrative, but they just don't put it front and center, and that's a clear design choice to do that.
How do you feel as a writer about that kind of storytelling, though? Because a lot of stories up until that point were still really sort of in cutscenes and leaving things in item descriptions and conversations that people could quite willingly ignore. It wasn't imposed upon them at all, but having these disparate parts of a whole, and the clamour to kind of talk, not just find out more yourself, but to talk to other people that were that were doing that themselves and that were playing it, and how did that affect both on a purely gaming point of view, but also as a writer yourself?
I mean, I think it's a really interesting way of telling stories in games. I think it's very hard to do correctly, and I think certain Souls games do it better than others. I don't think it would work for every game. Like I vividly remember taking inspiration from how Souls did and adding some of that to Witcher 3. Like some of the things I put in that game were hidden bits of lore and narrative where it wasn't on the beaten path and you had to go off. A bit like the note thing that I was talking about earlier. It's that kind of thing. That I was definitely inspired to do stuff like that from how Souls did it. But I think you have to go into doing narrative like that from the very beginning of the game. So if you sit down when you're first concepting the game and you're planning out the sort of pre-production and the concepting phase, you would have to make a decision then that is how you are going to tell a story. And I think it only works for certain games, and it only works for certain people as well. I think a lot of people like they play Souls games because it's fun, it's hard, it's a challenge, it's great, it gives you a great feeling when you kill a boss. You have a great sense of achievement. And I think a lot of people probably don't even know or care about the lore of the game because they're not there for it. They're there to play the game and to have fun and to fight the bosses. But then the select few who want to delve into the lore, well, they've put it all there for you. You just have to do a bit of digging and a bit of finding, and I like that element to it, but I don't think it would work. It definitely doesn't work it wouldn't work in every game, and it wouldn't work for every gamer, but I think I like that they did it. I'm not sure why they did it. Like, I couldn't really say why they thought that was a good idea, but I like that they did it, and I like that not everyone does it, because sometimes I like to know like I really like in Mass Effect as a complete counterpoint to it. I love in Mass Effect when you discover something, it goes into your codex, and then a man narrates it at you and tells you about it. So you don't even have to read it, he just talks at you. And I love that. But I also loved reading all the books in Skyrim, and then I also love discovering all the lore in Dark Souls that's hidden away. So it's, there's lots of different ways to tell a narrative, and there's lots of different ways to tell a story. And I think they all give something different.
So, I mean, there's rumours knocking around that Bluepoint are remastering Demon's Souls, and I'll throw this into Dark Souls as well, seeing as it's. Are
you banging on about a Demon's Souls remaster again?
Yes, yes,
because fucking Christ.
Yeah, somebody gave me a breadcrumb, and I'm nibbling on that breadcrumb.
Right, wake me up in 10
forever. All right. So, but this can apply to your love of Dark Souls as well. If that were to get sort of a full polish and remaster for this gen, what would you change
about Dark Souls?
About Dark Souls or Demon Souls in that regard as well.
I think Dark Souls I would change literally absolutely nothing. I can't imagine what. Yeah, I don't know. I've played that game so many times. I've played it on every format it's been on. It's one of the few games I've ever bought multiple times on different formats. What would I change? I don't know. I would even
Make
say
Blighttown run a little bit smoother.
Yeah. I'd definitely.
I think that would come with the territory, though.
Yeah, but I'd definitely make Blighttown run smoother. I think maybe make some of the covenants easier to find, but at the same time, I don't want that because I know where they all are. Because I put the time in to find them, so why should they be easier?
I suppose a little more incentive for the different covenants to be more active and not just be the odd 1, 2, or 3 that are populated. Maybe
I think what I'd maybe add from a completely selfish point of view is when you get a new item or you fight a new boss, and you get a new item. If you inspect the item, I would like them to add the information from the item into like a area of the menu that I can read, so that I don't have to hold on to all the items to read what they said. Because this is why I bought the strategy guides for the Dark Souls games, because at the back they have all the items in the game with their item text, and it just makes it a lot easier to like think about where was that weapon that mentioned that character, and instead of having to try and find the dagger in my inventory, I can just go to the back of the book and see which one it was. So maybe having, just from a completely selfish lore nerd narrative point of view, having a place where that was all catalogued once you collected it, of course, that would just make my life easier. But I think for Demon Souls, what I definitely change is the stupid trophy system with the world alignment that prevented me getting my platinum.
Strange one. It is a bit of a bonkers one, that. But I think there's good things that spin off from that. I like the in the US import. I like the way that Atlas would do the events and have certain black tendency coming in for like Valentine's Day and stuff, and white tendency sort of kicking in for like Christmas time or whatever. I think that's something that I'm really surprised that maybe a Destiny hasn't done, where you could really affect the world, make it more difficult in certain places or easier in other places, and have varying loot. Or
but Dark Souls 2 did that with the stone thing. You can go and
Champions Covenant.
Yeah, you go and like you go and give that the thing, and it makes it harder. I'm like, but it's the fact that it's manually activated, because the world tendency system was a cool idea. I just hated how certain things, like, because the reason it screwed me over is because there's the hammer in the room of the dragon god that you can only get, the way to it is only open if the world is on pure white tendency. And there's
a few places like that.
It's really hard to get it to be 100% pure white, even offline. It was really difficult. And I don't want to. I'm on New Game Plus, and I don't want to play through it again just to try and get that item.
I think the interesting thing with Demons as well is that it's got 3 sets of trophies. It's got EU, US, and sort of Asian trophies.
I think they'd fix it though, because I think Sony are way better on their trophy game now than they used to be in the PS3 era. They really didn't get trophies that well, like achievements.
So the often I don't know, tempestuous subject of Dark Souls 2 comes to the fore. Day one on this, I presume, as well.
Yep.
And do tell your story with Dark Souls 2.
I mean, I played it through. I completed it. I liked it. It was a bit of a letdown after Dark Souls 1.
So this was on PS3 as well, I presume.
I can't remember. I might have played it on 360. No, I did get it on PS3 actually. I did get it on PS3. Yeah, I liked that it was still connected in some way to the first game, like the lore, like it was set in the same world technically. I liked discovering how it was connected to it and why. And there's a few nice nods, like I can't remember what. There's one area that looks very much like Anor Londo. And there's similar architecture, and I liked that it was connected to the world. I thought the monster design was nowhere near as good. Like the bosses, there were a lot of bosses who were big dudes in armour. That kind of upset me, because I liked my gaping maw dragons and Sith and Seath, and So, but yeah, I mean, it was also really pretty because they upgraded the engine for that game. I remember, because like your chainmail flowed and your cloth flowed really nicely, so it was really pretty. So yeah, I liked the game. Like I hammered it, but it definitely wasn't as good as Dark Souls 1.
What do you think with regards to? I mean, we're sort of looking at with an eye on Dark Souls 3 in this regard as well. What do you think to the sequel that almost seems like the original game is a series of myths that have been lost and twisted throughout time, and versus kind of your direct references to them?
I think both approaches have merit and can be done well. I really like the idea that the events that happened before have now passed into myth and legend, because Lord of the Rings does that, even the new Star Wars does that. I love that in the new Star Wars they're like, Luke Skywalker, he was a myth, like the Rebel Alliance fighting the Empire, that, it was all just a story told. I like that concept, and I think it really adds history and weight to a world, to a setting. But yeah, I think both approaches can work really well. I think in fantasy, probably the myth version is better, because I think just from a complete technical standpoint, I think records and like documented accounts of those times that were so long ago probably wouldn't be able to exist because of the technology available. So I think them knowing directly about it, unless there's beings from that time, like immortals and things like that, I think it makes more sense for things to be considered more myths, and things to be named after certain people or locations, but not knowing why or how those names originated. Stuff like that.
What did you make of New Game Plus with Dark Souls 2? Because it is one of the things that I just think it does possibly better than any other game I know.
Yeah, the way they do New Game Plus is awesome. Like it was definitely way more enjoyable to play through that game again on the second go than probably any other game has.
Especially the way they kind of throw the unexpected at you, or rather than it just. I mean, in the original Dark Souls, when you went into New Game Plus, there was a delight in kind of carving away through sort of enemies, like your sword was a butter knife in that regard. But in Dark Souls 2, where you first land and all of a sudden in New Game Plus you're surrounded by all those guys with like eagles and stuff. You're like, what?
Yeah.
And the game constantly will have these little additions that are there to like completely fuck you up. I just think is wonderful. Plus, this real personality to the sort of NPCs that are there as well. Those that help you and those that invade you, and I love that to pieces.
It shows a great attention to detail from the developer, because they actually went into, they made a game and they did all the content for the game, which takes a long time and a lot of effort, and then they went, okay, now we're going to tweak things for New Game Plus, and they went through and hand tweaked things for New Game Plus so that it was different, and they didn't have to do that. I really respect a developer when they go to that extra step and do something like that. I think it's really, really cool.
Did you presumably you progressed to the DLC?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Which is just gobsmacking.
Yeah.
to follow a game with the Three Crowns trilogy, and some of the design decisions in there, some of the surroundings, the level of difficulty, it seems just crazy that they released those a month apart from one another, and probably, what was it, maybe 4 or 5 months after Dark Souls 2 released itself.
Yeah, it's weird. It's probably my least favourite Souls games with the best DLC.
Favorite stuff in there? Have you got a?
I like all the DLC. I liked every bit of it. I thought it was awesome. I loved how it connected things together. I loved the new environments, and I thought the boss design in those was infinitely stronger than the main game.
Well, I think it was Yuta Tanimura was kind of sole director on this, rather than kind of putting the piece together from what was there on Dark Souls 2 originally, and had got his own vision rather than trying to get a game shipped, I guess.
I mean that could be why. Maybe there are other factors, but it's definitely possible.
I think with regards to the new DLC as well, I think that one of the reasons that it hasn't hit me as hard, it's not difficult to compare the Souls DLCs across the board and Bloodborne DLC, because they're all sort of magnificent. But when I think of some of the crazy design decisions in Crown of the Ivory King, with sort of electric Ponyland and sliding down to there in a coffin, and the boss battle where you drop in with the Lois Knights, and with a really Artorias-like fight, and you going into that abyss, falling down that hole into the abyss with like the fire and stuff. There was so much that took my breath away within that, and I've not really found that in contrast with the new one.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you on that.
So Dark Souls 3, day one again, presumably. Well, let's we're jumping ahead a wee bit. Scholar, then, did you pick up Scholar? Did you go for a second round, or did you kind of like that?
Yeah, I got Scholar.
What did you make of the remix, the additions, the changes? Also, how pretty it looks.
Oh yeah, it's so pretty. Yeah, I loved Scholar. I thought it was great.
A friend of mine's got has picked up a 4K TV, and she says like it's the prettiest thing that she's put on it gaming wise.
Yeah, those games are weirdly beautiful in their own unique way. Like, they're not graphically massively impressive, but what they do with the tools they have is incredible. Like, I still, even now, even to this day, like that original reveal of Anor Londo is still stunning. And it isn't. If you look at it from a completely technical point of view, it's not that great. There's not a lot of elements to it. It's just the way it's shot, the style of it, the framing, the lighting. It's just amazing.
The way the music rises with the reveal as well, where you kind of go up and the sunlight bursts around Orlando. It's got that the music sort of is almost soaring up with you as well. It is, yeah. That's a glory.
They're very well put together games. I'll say that. They do reveals good, and they do vistas very well, and visual set pieces very well.
So, especially given the stuff you were reading from a very young age, Bloodborne then.
Oh, I love Bloodborne.
Talk to me about Bloodborne with the initial reveals and the Miyazaki doing something different, and were you sort of, was the level of excitement just off the chain then on this?
Yeah, Bloodborne. I mean, I've written articles and articles about this game because I love it. Dark Souls.
Story-wise, is it your favourite, would you say?
No, probably still. It's difficult. Probably still Dark Souls 1 because I have a very nostalgic sweet spot for Dark Souls 1 and the whole lore of Gwyn and the Four Lords. But Bloodborne definitely is close. I remember getting it because I saw the reveal of it. I remember watching it at E3 and the reveal of it. I was like, oh my god, this looks awesome. And then to then realise it was From Software, and I was like, oh my god, this game is going to be the greatest game of all time. I was so hyped for it. And it basically, it was never in question what console I was getting that year, because Bloodborne was out in the March. I was like, well, it doesn't matter because I'm getting a PS4 just to play Bloodborne. I don't care.
It answered a lot of that question for people, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
It was right, well, there's the choice.
Yeah.
I think, it's something we've spoken about before, but Sony's marketing and handling of that game was just perfect. Yeah. And the fact that the point where we actually saw it, the game wasn't far off being done. We'd not seen a CGI trailer 3 years before at E3. It was nearly there. We'd already seen sort of some gameplay footage in a slightly leaked video that was cut into GIFs and then was put back together and stuff. And it was this is coming out next year. This is early next year as well. When we find out that, it was you've nearly finished it. You're showing it as when we've nearly finished it. And I think there's such a degree of hype that hits me personally when I know they're almost over the hill with this. It's not just, and there's a momentum that's maintained up until release, rather than doing a Division where you see different bits every year and it kind of limps onwards until they try and put out a beta before release to try and get people excited again. And I don't know, it feels like that initial movement forward has been derailed by early peaks.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a difficult thing to sort of keep a hype train going for long, and I think they always are quite wise showing a game not too long before it's out.
So what hit the hardest then with Bloodborne? What raised the eyebrows, and what I don't know, what thrilled you about it?
I loved it from the very first moment. Playing it, I was just so happy playing it, and I loved the monster design, I loved the world design, but there was always that sense in the back of my mind. I was like, this definitely isn't Souls, this is something else. And I was like, this is quite interesting. I was like, there's definitely some Lovecrafty going on here, but only a little bit. I was like, yeah, this is a bit culty, blah blah. And then I can't remember what moment it was, but there was definitely a moment I was like, is this a Lovecraft game? And then I just asked myself, and then I walked it through, and I was like, oh my god, this is a Lovecraft game. This is full on Lovecraft. And at that point, I was just like, this is my favourite thing ever. This is Dark Souls meets Lovecraft, and I was just like, this is the best thing. This is the greatest game.
Did the story hit you at that point, or was it just purely existing in that kind of world?
Yeah, I think it was. I can't remember which boss it was, but there's a moment where you discover that the blood and the curse is actually blood of an elder being that they found, and it's all cosmic, and they'd been studying it, and I was like, oh my god, this is a Lovecraft game in Dark Souls. And yeah, as soon as I found that, I was like, right, well, now I have to now I have to plumb the depths of this game to its entirety. I need to know everything. And so that just started me off on my Dark Souls-esque discovery missions.
Were you talking to other people about this at this point, or was it was there the same sort of cabal that was gathering around Bloodborne that had in turn sort of with the Souls games, or was this sort of purely for you?
No, it was. So I think it was at CDP at the time, and there were people who liked the game, definitely, and there were people who enjoyed it, but no one was into it as much as I was. Like no one wanted to talk to me about the lore that much. But I was doing a lot of reading online and a lot of like discussions online about it and about people's theories and stuff like that. And then I wrote an article about the lore of the game for Fantasy Faction, a sort of book website that I write for. But they cover films and games and stuff occasionally. So I was like, I just wrote this article about the lore of Bloodborne, what it actually all meant and what it was all connected to, because I just felt like I had to write about it so that other people could read about it.
From a cinematic point of view as well, given you love your films and stuff, how did you feel about the handling of horror in Bloodborne? Because I as someone that used to write for a paper about world cinema and stuff, the thing that I fell in love with about J-horror back in the day was it asked questions in my head and like threw me into places that really unsettled me and really and I found wonderfully difficult to shake thereafter. And the Hollywood thing always seems to be, here's the computer graphic monster that we've been working on. Here's a 360-degree spin on it, rather than just kind of, I don't know, a concept or a moment or something being thrown at you that just you can't quite process.
There was definitely a lot of really weird concepts in Bloodborne, like the fascination with blood, especially like menstrual blood, and like that was a very weird tone. Like, I remember there's a character who you can save her or something, and then she'll give you vials, and it's like basically her giving you her menstrual blood as a means of healing.
Of those. Yeah, there's like 4 of those.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, this is weird. And then like when you meet like Murgo's wet nurse and stuff like that, there's that very, it's got a very strange fascination with like the human reproductive cycle and the birthing and the death and the life cycle of humans, and also of these beings that are completely alien in terms of physiology to us, and how those two things can, when they combine, the kind of horror it can create. It definitely goes to some interesting places. I definitely think that it's as close to a Lovecraft video game as we're ever going to get without the brand name being on it as a Lovecraft game. I think it's the game that's true to its inspiration.
I think as we've often seen across games in general, really pretty and glorious and wonderfully evocative boss designs, but there are boss designs within this that are hard to look at because it's flappy and
what's the one from the DLC, the first proper one from the DLC, Ludwig, yeah, that is a fucked up thing to look at.
It's a horsestrosity.
Yeah, that is really weird.
Something we had when I first met Ebriatus in the Upper Cathedral, me and Laura had a bet as to which end was the face. I was wrong.
Yep.
The Victorian game show, like which end is the face?
No, it's got a very. I love the style of it, and it's weird that it's from a Japanese developer as well. Like that baffled me as well, because it's like you say, Japanese horror is very much sort of steeped in Japanese culture and their sort of myths and legends, and like Lovecraft is very, very much its own thing, and it's very.
But I do find a Japanese perspective on Western story and places and design far more attractive than Western views on it most of the time.
Absolutely, I think it's a great. It's really I think you do get some of the best stuff when you get one culture interpreting another's culture. I think it really like I said, they made the best Lovecraft game that we'll probably ever have that isn't actually branded as such.
Because I hadn't really thought about that crossing over of old Japanese myths and J-horror stuff with the Lovecraftian aspect, but you can definitely see a connection. Plus, there's another culture's processing of the architecture and the mood, and I just find that really fascinating. It was there for me in Dragon's Dogma again. I really loved that.
It's just really clever. Like the amygdala, like that creature is such an it looks interesting. It's weird. I was like, what is that name? What does it mean? And I look it up, and it's like it's the area of the brain where humans process fear. And I was like, that is so clever that they named this thing that.
There are things like the winter lanterns, which I just can't quite shake in my head. It's as a design, so just I think that works for me in the same way as kind of the ding, in Demon Souls.
Do you know they're wearing doll clothes?
Oh no.
Yeah.
But that's a degree of something that I guess within both of those regards, with it existing in like a sound or a song or a nightlight, it takes you back to that real childlike notion of being scared. That isn't worldly wise, that doesn't know the area around you, and it's just like...
Well, it's like take an isolated moment, which is quite early on in the game, the whole story around Father Gascoigne and his family, and like that whole little story about how he went out to hunt, and then he was corrupted and became this monster and killed his wife, and his daughter's locked alone in this house, and she doesn't know where her dad is or where her mum is. And then she gives you the music box, and then you use it in the fight with him, and it drives him insane because it's the echoes of his past and the horrors that he's committed, and it's one of the only ways to really beat him because he's such a hard ass.
Also, the revelation on the other side of it that we're often, well, more often than not, rewarded for completing a quest, but dear God,
if you finish this quest to the end, you kill 2 small children.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's even that regard of, I mean, it really hit me at the time, but
that's just classic Souls quest, isn't it? If you want people to be happy, just fuck off, leave them alone.
Yeah, but when you're hearing a child sort of crying because she realizes that her parents are gone, it was nobody like, I've done the thing you require, like give me that. Oh, here's this, you can use this and this, and it's like, oh, there's a crying child, and suddenly I feel terrible. Dark Souls 3 then. I presume straight in there day one. Were you excited on this, or was there a degree of reluctance that it was coming so soon, not just after Bloodborne, but I guess Dark Souls 2, I guess? I
was excited, but after my love affair with Bloodborne, I was less excited because I felt like it was going back to the old style of Souls, and I didn't know. It definitely was connected differently, like from what they talked about, and the fact that it was now about the embers and like kindling the fire. It was similar but different, and I don't know. I just loved Bloodborne so much that I didn't really want. Again, that was my game where I didn't want it to end. Like, I didn't want Bloodborne to end. I wanted to be in that world more, and to then have to go back to the sort of Souls universe, it was a little sobering and a little... It wasn't disappointing because that game's really, really good, but it was less exciting than it once was.
Do you think that notion was amplified somewhat by the quality of the Bloodborne DLC?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
So was there were there any moments in Dark Souls 3 that kind of ignited you in a certain degree, or was it nice at least sort of going from horror back to fantasy, given that both of those things are passions of yours?
Do you know what? I'm actually thinking about Dark Souls 3 now, and I can't really remember any moments from it. And I think that's telling.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think. I mean, I remember the hub, and I remember like the boss fights, but I can't think of a moment where I was like, "Wow, this is like." It didn't have that magic moment that Dark Souls 1 did or Bloodborne did for me, at least.
I heard a really funny notion on the Platformers podcast where they said like if Dark Souls is like a really sturdy box that you're going to put in a garage and everything fits in there perfectly and nothing's going to ever leak into the box, it's just a perfect box and it's there. And they were like, on Dark Souls 2, you've not really got a box, you've got a bag. And it's kind of a little bit squishy. It's going to keep everything in there. That's fine. And if you put the bag sort of into between like a few spaces, it'll fit in there. That's fine. But it's not quite the box. And they said like Dark Souls 3, it's like you're going back into the original box and you're taking a few things out to put a few things in. It was like that's we don't need that. It's like that made me giggle a little bit. I must admit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it definitely felt better than 2, but it still wasn't 1, and it wasn't Bloodborne.
What did you think with regards to the world design? Was it sort of what you expected at this point, or were you comparing certain levels to similar levels in previous games?
No, I think it had its own unique sort of area design. I think it had. I mean, they always have clever area design. I think it still had that. I thought the areas felt bigger than they used to. But again, you get to them differently. Like, they changed. The thing I love about Dark Souls 1 is it's one connected world. And they've really gone away from that in pretty much every other game that they've done.
Do you think from a game design standpoint it's easier to have, or more convenient to have your hub world and then to sort of bolt your levels on from there and to build those outwards?
Yeah, I definitely think it makes more sense design-wise. I think it gives you a lot more freedom. And it's probably a lot easier because you don't have to connect everything up. Because the Dark Souls 1 is just a masterwork of level design. Like,
have you seen that big poster?
Oh yeah,
somebody did with like the stretching. I've always wanted like a massive version of that. Seen sort of people that bought like the tiny ones, but I'd love to have like a huge version of that. Just goes from like near ceiling to floor and just gore pattern.
Yeah, it's so impressive that game fits together how it does.
I think one thing that Dark Souls 3 does do superbly well is boss design.
Yeah.
They're some of my favourites in the game. Have you got? Sorry, in all the games rather. Did you have any particular favourites within these, or?
I really liked the dragon riding guy. I forget his name.
Which I'm still
the Nameless King.
Nameless King, yeah.
The replacement for Solaire, seemingly.
Yeah.
I hate what they've done to that. How they've numbed it.
Well, Solaire's still in it. He's the soup, isn't he?
Don't. It just bothered me. I still haven't done that boss fight though. I've seen it on streams and stuff, but I just looked at it.
Do you know why? Because it's evil.
It is evil.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be stupendously over leveled for when I take on John Bon Jovi and his magic trick.
But again, like, I can't really think of any that really stood out. Name some bosses.
The Abyss Watchers.
The Abyss Watchers.
That's the one where it's almost like a ballet, where all the blood comes into the centre about halfway through, and the music's like astonishing.
Oh yeah, that fight is really good.
That to me just again it seemed like a performance, a dance on a stage as much as a boss fight.
Yeah,
I loved that. I liked the.
I wore their set actually for a long time because it looked so awesome.
Is it Vort of the Boreal Valley at the in the first level? The guy that kind of charges.
Oh yeah, the big armored dog thing, dude.
Loved the battle with the twin princes as well. I think that was
that was cool.
That was the piece of the story which made me go, oh my god. That was the part where it properly got under my skin, and especially that it was the one of the original voice actors from Dark Souls that was voicing the youngest prince.
That was a really cool fight, and it looked really cool.
It was a wonderful connection. But yeah, I enjoyed all of those, I must admit, and enjoyed playing through the game itself. I look at the fan service and I still stare at it, and I don't quite get it, and I'm hoping to when the last DLC drops. But
Grotty's coming.
It just seems like a very very strange way of doing things.
It was
because
I mean, it was a good game. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I played through it, and I think I played through it twice, and I enjoyed it. But it just, I don't know, it didn't hold the magic.
It's not lingered.
No.
In the imagine, and it is funny that a lot of folks seem to have that opinion, that they enjoyed going through it, but struggle to remember memorable moments from it.
It's the Force Awakens of Dark Souls. Hey, you remember Dark Souls? Yeah, cool. Here's a game.
Yeah, it does feel like that a little bit.
It's just like for me. Like we've gone on length at this, but like it's just 3 is just. I've played it once, like you say, I enjoyed it, and I played it, and I've sort of had some fun in co-op, but just no motivation to go back to it. And I played the DLC, and I've done that once, and answered no questions, raised more than it answered. And it was so good, I've gone back to Bloodborne, and that is superlative.
So many people seem to have done that.
Yeah,
I
Dark
noticed
Souls
one of
3.
the Gavs has done it now.
So good.
You've done it. And...
Great game. Yeah, really good. So good that I went back to play the previous one that was way better.
But it's a difficult thing, because I think Bloodborne, like, I missed all of Bloodborne's elements while playing Dark Souls 3. Like, I was like, oh, where's my gun for countering, and where's my trick weapons? Like, I love the weapons that keep changing. It's such a cool element. Like, where are they?
You see, being weird in this regard, I didn't click with Bloodborne until after I played Dark Souls 3, where it was almost like my lead-in to Bloodborne, to understanding Bloodborne, where I kind of came back and suddenly the movement made sense. And I then went... I think I'd left it at the Nightmare Frontier and wasn't doing particularly well, and then went into the Chalices and suddenly realised that rather than grinding, I could go into the Chalices and get decent gear. And I fell in love with Bloodborne at that point, but it was a delayed notion for me, because it just seemed like whilst I was knee deep in Scholar at that point, Scholar became really important to me. Bloodborne, just the amount of times I'd gone into it, it just hadn't been there, and it was a real feeling of, it's not you, it's me. We'll find each other at some point. We're going to try again. But when it did, my God, it did. But I still haven't done the DLC for Bloodborne, so I've still got that to tuck into. At which point, whenever I talk to somebody, they go like, So you've dived into the DLC. None of us have, even Paddy haven't, and I haven't really had a conversation about the first part of the Dark Souls 3 DLC. What did you make of it?
I haven't played it yet.
Oh, right, okay. I will turn this towards Paddy then, because we haven't had a conversation about it.
Okay. It's all
right.
right.
You finished it. I've sort of played it for a bit and left it alone.
It's got one really good boss and one really disappointing boss. The world is interesting, if a little bit vague. They tease the painted stuff a bit too much without much answer. I heard Gary talking about it the other day. From Bonfireside Chat, and it's like it's about 40% of like a story. There's some bits there, but not enough to form anything, and it doesn't seem to link very well to the main game. Like there's things introduced in there that are brand new, and like that's fine, but there's not enough links to the main body of the game. But maybe I don't like the game as much. Like I don't like the base game of Dark Souls 3 as much, so maybe I'm not seeing the links because I didn't really delve that far into the lore because it's fan fiction. It's all right. You know, it's 3-4 hours and done. The main boss of it is proper good, and it's very, very unique. Like it's not a thing the Souls games have done before. But then the other boss is just the laziest, retreadiest, hey, remember a Dark Souls thing you can think of.
But isn't
depressing?
I mean, didn't they do that once before with the optional rat boss in Dark Souls 2 that was like a crap Sith?
Yeah, it was shit.
And
It's exactly that.
Again.
It's exactly that.
But added a little bit of Sonic the Hedgehog to it.
Yeah, it's literally that. It's hey, look, here's another crap Sith. You have emotions related to this, right? Feel emotions. Look, there's a grave nearby. That looks a bit similar, doesn't it? Hey.
Because again, I heard that the DLC for Bloodborne was supposed to be 2 separate pieces of content, and they didn't think it was enough to have them separate like that. So
yeah,
put them all together.
They could have benefited from doing the same thing with this, because it's not enough. And all the questions I think people had from Dark Souls 3 lore-wise, just ignored, and they just go ask a whole bunch of new questions instead. And it's not what I come here for. We come here for answers. The classic Bonfire Side chat thing is Gary Barfield's always, Krusty's coming. He'll be here soon. Soon he'll be here, and all the questions will be answered, and it'll all be resolved nicely. But we've got one DLC to go, and Krusty's not here yet.
There's a huge focus on that last DLC. It's going to be a strange one, especially as to whether from set the game down there and just leave it be, or as to whether, because Miyazaki's hinted at, well, if somebody on staff comes up with a good enough idea, I'll let them do it.
That doesn't really bode well for a cohesive vision, though, does it?
No, but you look
personally.
at you look at Demon Souls, and Demon Souls was an idea that was falling to bits when Miyazaki, who was a very young designer from, just came on and unleashed creativity and brilliance and made that into the game that it
finished
was.
It, yeah.
But who's to say that there's not somebody else at From that's got similar ideas or similar creativity? And I've said it before, I'd love to see Yui Tanimura do a Dark Souls game under his own vision right from the start, rather than putting a game together that wasn't working and then coming on with having the tenacity to do the brilliant Three Crowns trilogy and still not let the game go and sort of polish it through and remix it to Scholar. I want to see more from Tanimura. I think he's a very talented man that took a lot of the initial criticisms for Dark Souls 2 on his shoulders, with a great degree of class as well, and then built outwards. So
I think they'd be better doing it where they just abandon the Souls name and let him do something unique that has a very similar style, like Bloodborne, Like, there's nothing connecting Bloodborne to Souls apart from the fact it's by the same studio. But it's a great game in the same vein. I think if they let him do something like that, like give him his own universe to play in, let him creatively come up with some concepts, and let him play with the formula a little bit, I think he could come up with something really, really special.
I think with Dark Souls 2 as well, there was that feeling that was always bandied about that, it's not Miyazaki. And then when Miyazaki has come back to Dark Souls, it's something that doesn't feel satisfying. So I'm still of the regard that he was mentioning comics years ago that there are no bad characters, just bad writers, and that somebody might see something in a character like Grant Morrison did with Animal Man from the 1950s and turn it into one of the greatest runs I've ever read. If somebody was there with creativity in game design and story and wanted to do something within that world, I genuinely love the Dark Souls world. I loved it. It broke my heart a little bit when Bloodborne cut away the connections to Demon Souls.
But that's important, I think, that they did that.
I don't know.
It's its own thing. I don't think it needs to be tied down. It's its own story. I think once you start drawing... I read the stupidest fucking thing the other day where someone was like trying to link Bloodborne to Souls because of the recent DLC. It was just the reachiest, fill in the blanks yourselfiest thing I've read in forever. It's like, well, there's blood on the paint for the painted world has blood in it, and Bloodborne also has blood in it. So these two are definitely related. Like, no, fuck off. Just stop. Just stop. Let things be their own thing. I don't think we need all these connections anymore. Like, just make a story on its own. I mean, Souls for me has proven that the longer it goes on, the less I think I'm gonna care. Like, second DLC's coming out, and I'm not excited.
The world's obsessed with
anymore.
Shared universes at the moment. Everything has to be part of a shared universe. It can never be a standalone thing.
I don't have time for that anymore. That's why I don't watch Marvel stuff anymore. I just can't be bothered. There's so much of it.
That at one point was a criticism of comics, And then comics became more standalone. Then the Marvel universe sort of built out and had this shared universe, and people were invested, and it kept putting bums on seats in cinemas and stuff. And so it'd be interesting to see where that goes in that regard. Stephen, have you ever dived into other From Software games like Armored Core, King's Field, anything like that?
Not really. I dabbled in Armored Core a little bit, but it never grabbed me particularly.
I'm tempted by Itogi because it's got the same visual designer as Demon's Souls, Dark and Dark 3. So, but that's now commanding like a huge price. I think people are looking at it and going like, "Oh right, I might have that," and copies are thin on the ground, and the price is still climbing.
Yeah. I actually owned a copy of Echo Night Beyond on PS2 before I knew what it was. I bought it for like £1. Like it's a From game from before. It's a ghost game on a spaceship, but it's impenetrable hard. Like I played 20 minutes of it, did not understand what it wanted from me, and just promptly got rid of it. And I imagine that's now going for stupid money now.
I still own Ninja Blade on the 360, which was From's. Whereas the PS3 got Demon's Souls, the 360 got Ninja Blade, and which looks like a kind of Platinum-esque, bonkers super fight, daft game, which I've never really played much. But again, I think it's got the same visual designer as Demon's Souls. So even if I'm putting it in on easy and just sort of playing through, I quite fancy doing that, and I keep putting it off. But yeah, because I also picked up Armored Core 4 and 4 Answer, the Miyazaki ones, really, really cheap in the last few weeks. So I don't know, there's a part of me that just wants to sink into those and give them the proper amount of time, whereas they don't normally kind of give a lot in their Western incarnations, because the Japanese allegedly get like these huge tomes of how to build your machines and stuff, and we don't get a manual anymore. So, Stephen, I mean, thank you very much for joining us. I've really, really enjoyed the chat. What is the next step for you, good sir?
If you're allowed to talk about it.
I think it's...
not... I don't... Oh, okay, fair enough. I'm in the process of... I should be going next week, but I'm heading over to Quebec City in Canada to be a writer for Ubisoft.
Well, hey. Excited for new country, new experiences, and I presume that's a massive studio as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the new challenges, new studio, new team, new projects. It's one of the smaller Ubisoft studios. It's only like 400 and something people. Which sounds silly, but
Fanny's reaction was mine. I was like keeping it till and just going like that.
Yeah, I mean that's still pretty big for studios I've worked at. But like Montreal, for example, is like 2,500 people. So that's the kind of difference. So yeah, I'm really excited. Really eager to get over there and get started. It's going to be a very interesting sort of time, and I'm looking forward to getting stuck in and getting back to my sort of full-time job, because I finished my last position end of September, so I've had a couple of months off now, so I'm itching to get back to work. But yeah, I'm doing that. I'm also finishing work on the indie game I mentioned earlier, 7 The Days Long Gone, which is being made out of Poland by Fool's Theory. That's sort of coming along nicely, and I'm really proud of the work we've done on that. So I was lead writer on that. So I've done a lot of world building, a lot of the sort of groundwork for the game itself. So I'm really looking forward to that sort of being finished and coming out and seeing what people think about it. / terribly nervous about that as well, but it comes with the territory.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, and if you come back and talk to us again, that would be marvelous.
No, it's been great fun. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
All right. Take care, and we'll speak to you soon.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye everyone.